the Huskies, the Buffaloes, the 4x, the 6x, all that stuff. So, yeah, we used it all. That was pretty much the package, right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I was in
And
Marja in 2011, dude, the route clearance platoon guys, I think we had more Army guys come through our area and
yeah,
do it than Marines, but man, those dudes were getting blown up constantly, and they would clear a route, and then they would get backlayed on. So the insurgents would come
yep,
through and put in IEDs behind them. I remember, I think Route Alligator was a real bad one in
yeah.
Marja. How how well protected did you feel if you're like cruising inside that Husky? Because that thing's just kind of made to get blown up. And do you want to explain what that
Yeah.
vehicle is, and then kind of go through how you
So
felt in it?
yeah, sure. The Husky is a one-man vehicle. It's a scouting vehicle, pretty much. The Army uses it as a scouting vehicle more than the Marine Corps. And what I mean by scouting is that they would go up ahead, uh, maybe with the protection of a gun truck behind them. But the Husky has two panels that fold down, and they're radars. They're metal detectors. Sorry, they're metal detectors, and they're basically just a big CMD or a Chia, whatever those metal detectors were called. It was later that I've never been in one. I've never even sat in one before. I was the guide in my route clearance platoon. I was the lead truck commander. So you basically had the two Huskies that were staggered, then the first gun truck, which was me, which is usually consisted of a 4x MRAP. This is before MATVs or anything like that. And this is down in Garmser, where I was my first deployment to Afghanistan. And so yeah, the Huskies are made to blow up. They're big metal detector. Later on, they came out with a GPR, which is like a big ground penetrating radar panel in the front. So instead of rolling over the IED and then finding it, hopefully not getting blown up, you got this radar in front of you a little bit. Kind of like how the Humvees used to have that flag looking
Oh,
thing
yeah.
in front of their Humvees in Iraq, just to give you a little distance between you and the bomb. It was they could take a hit, man. Those vehicles, my Husky drivers both got hit several times. One of them actually got hit too many times and had to go home. They sent them home from Afghanistan. That's what already when we were in Marja, though. We got pulled out of Garmser and sent to support 3-6 as a route clearance platoon for the invasion in 2010. But yeah, the MRAPs, the gun truck, I felt safe in. I got blown up pretty good in Garmser on Rock Cowboys. It was about 125-pound IED hit my side of the truck and completely lifted it off the ground. And we had a mine roller and everything. The Huskies missed it. They missed the IED. They missed the anomaly in the ground. And they had ground penetrating radars at that time. And my Husky driver actually ended up admitting the fact later that he's like, I saw something in the ground, but I didn't think it was anything. I
Oh,
was like,
damn
you
it.
fucking asshole. I got blown up for that. But yeah, those vehicles are made to take a hit, and we all know that. And they save lives. Later on, and in other parts of Afghanistan, the Army was getting hit, and they were tearing their vehicles apart.
Mm-hmm.
They're I forgot what kind of vehicles they have.
The Max, Pro Max, or whatever the heck it is.
They have Max.
Max
They have
Pro.
Pro Max, Max Pro. They have Max Pros, and they also have the ones that sat really high. They had the 7-ton tires on them and wheels
Yeah.
on them, but like their doors were really small. I can't remember what they're called, but nonetheless, different. And I just remember seeing videos earlier on in like 2011, 2012, just getting torn apart by the IEDs, and they got smart and they learned how to defeat the mine rollers, and
Yeah,
all
offset.
that.
And
So
yeah, there's a
yeah,
lot of different. It's one of those things. It's like an ongoing chess match where you got to like counter what they're doing. They're
yep,
countering what you're doing. You got to kind of like you were saying that swing arm that came down. That was to help with I think IR sensing IED triggers.
yeah,
And it was supposed
yep.
to simulate the engine block being ahead of the actual vehicle so that it would set it off at the wrong time.
Blow up in front of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like pretty crazy, man. Um, yeah, the only real exposure I had to the vehicles as a mechanic was in Iraq, adding like new armor and stuff to them. But I got to go to the school in there was a course in North or South Carolina where they built the Cougars, the Cougar like 4x and 6x MRAPs and the Buffalo, and it was cool. They had the Buffalo there that was actually in Transformers in the first Transformers movie,
You're
and
talking about down in South Carolina, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I've been
I'm
there. I
trying to remember.
trained down there. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the
I
name of
can't
the
remember
town
the
that
name
it's
of the
in.
company.
It's some
Yeah,
little
I can't remember.
tiny
But
country town too, and I remember.
it's not far from Charleston, though.
Yeah, yeah, it's like 30 minutes or 45 minutes from
Yeah.
Charleston. Um, those things are so easy to drive for being as big as they are and like
I
bulky and
know.
stuff. We actually had to drive them. We got there the day before the Marine Corps birthday, so then of course
Oh,
we went out and got fucking smashed, that night, and then at like a Texas Roadhouse or something in South Carolina, and then the next day we're super hungover, but now it was the day we had to drive the Buffaloes around. And it was like, all right, take it around the parking lot, back it up. You can back it into a spot. Cool, let's take it out on the highway. And you're just like, oh shit, here we go. Get this 30-ton
I don't know if
vehicle
I
or
should be
whatever.
doing this.
But
Yeah.
the what was really cool is the arm on it. It had that articulating arm that could swing out and kind of investigate IEDs. Did you guys find that to be useful at all, or was it just more of a show thing, that you guys didn't actually use?
No, we used it.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, if the Huskies found something, our 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 tactics changed. Obviously, like you were saying, when their tactics would change, and so we didn't want to set patterns or routines or anything like that. Um, but there was times when the Huskies would. We had EOD attached to us as a route clearance platoons. They had a truck of their own and with a robot and all that stuff. So sometimes when the Huskies find something, we will set a cordon. The Huskies will move up, the gun truck will move up, and we'll set a cordon. And EOD will come up and do a hand sweep, do a foot sweep, and find it that way and bip it right there, blow in place if you don't know. And and other times, with the Y sweeps, a lot of times I was out there doing the foot sweeps and finding it. But there was times when we used the buffalo arm a little bit. There was a time when it got blown off.
Yeah, of course.
You're pulling on a wire and it's gonna go sometimes, and it's happened.
Dude,
But it's definitely
what's going through your mind when you're out there V sweeping? You're on foot sweeping for a bomb.
well. That's what I wanted, man. That's what I wanted to do as a combat engineer. That's what my job was supposed to be. That's what I thought. So I was all about it. Yeah, there's a level of fear, and I talked about it not too long ago in one of my posts. Um, I about being how well I looked for IEDs in Garmsher compared to Marja and then compared to Sangin, and the level of comfort and confidence I achieved later on. So in Garmsher, I was a little nervous. I had a main sweeper that was in front of me, and he was very good. His name was Lance Corporal Tubbs, and he did a wonderful job. But there's always that fear of. I was a sergeant at this time, and I was his leader, and there's always that fear of him missing something and me stepping on it because I was a second man. Um, so, and it wasn't until I got to singing that I was actually really doing foot sweeps and
Mm-hmm.
on my own. Um, like I was Lance Corporal Tubbs, in singing, in Garmser and Marja, I was mainly, calling the shots on the radio, talking to my platoon commander and platoon sergeant and all that stuff, and leading the patrol. It was sometimes we actually went on patrols and supported 2-2 as a route clearance platoon on foot. It was weird. We would dump the trucks. We would dump the trucks and go out on foot with 2-2 sometimes, and we did that.
When you were in Garmser, what kind of IEDs were you seeing there? Like, what was the big threat?
There was a lot of. There was obviously victim initiated, pressure plates, whatnot. We saw a couple of triggermen operated, so a guy sitting way off down to a couple of, a couple 100 feet away in the bushes, tree line, watching us, and he would pull the trigger. We saw, what did we see? What else did we see? That was mainly those two.
When you had a triggerman, how often did you ever get the trigger guy? If you had never. Yeah.
Never.
Their standoff was that far.
There was one time when we were out. There was 2 squads out. We had dumped the trucks and we were walking, and one of the other squad leaders was hit by an IED. He wasn't severely hurt. He ended up having to get medevaced eventually that night, but like it wasn't like an amputee or anything like that. But we feel like there was where he was hit. There was a road, and then on the other side of the road by this little compound was a guy just standing there, and we all thought, that was him, because it wasn't a pressure plate that he stepped on. It was up on a berm, and it was almost kind of like a directional frag container, a DFC or whatever you want to call it. And it kind of just peppered him with shrapnel and stuff like that. But this guy was on the other side of the road watching. And when we went to go talk to him, guns pointed at him, whatever, another IED went off. And it was a legacy IED, and it was buried pretty deep and under hard ground. So the guy that stepped on it was just blown 10 feet back, and we all were like just a little concussed or whatever. But
do you want to explain what a legacy IED is?
It's something that's been sitting in the ground for a long time, and the ground has had time to get really hard, and there's not any indicators either. Usually there's disturbed earth or something like that. There's nothing. It's been there for so long that it's just not. It's not. You can't detect it. So we went to go when this one went off. He hightailed it out of there. That guy. So you don't ever get to. You rarely ever get to see him. There was a time in Marja that one went off, and we saw a guy running away, and we chased after him. We caught him, and we took him in our truck and took him back to Camp Hansen, not Okinawa Camp Hansen, but Marja Camp Hansen. and they ended up releasing him the next day or something like that.
Oh, really? Fuck.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Damn,
we caught him pretty much red-handed. Yeah. And
well, I only remember one time when I was in Marja with 3-6 in 2011. So the next deployment after the one you assisted with, there was an IED in placer that a patrol just basically walked up on. And I guess this guy kind of looked up as he was emplacing it, tried to take off running, and the point man, took him out, like shot him. And then for a split second because I was in the command center, because I was the fires chief at the time, there was was the ROEs met for him to shoot? Like someone said that, and the 3 Alpha, which is the assistant operations officer, immediately was like, "Don't ever fucking say that again." He's like, "I am not going to investigate my point man that took out a dude who's putting in an IED for shooting him. Like, we're not going to do that because all you're going to do is now make everybody question every time they go out if they're allowed to pull the trigger. Are they going to get investigated?" Exactly. They're like, "This was obviously no issue. Like, don't even bring it up." And I was just like, man, thank God someone with some common sense is speaking up.
Yeah.
Because I mean, imagine if you're like, I don't know, man. That's got to be even what you said, having caught a guy, brought him alive too, and then they release him the next day. That's got to be super frustrating,
It was frustrating, They held him overnight, and we got word that he was let go early in the morning the next day.
So crazy.
We're just like, what the